Hello, Vol Nation. Welcome to another episode of Believe in Tennessee Football. I'm your host, as always, Kyler Kerberson, joined with Reed Bacon. We've got a good one today. We bring on a friend of ours from high school, but he's actually a director of recruiting at Western Kentucky. He spent some time at Notre Dame and Indiana, so he knows what he's talking about when it comes to recruiting. Now, we didn't get the chance to talk about Rotarius Torrance and Kamal Hayden because they were technically recruiting him also, and Taylor can't actually talk about those guys. But we touch on the quarterbacks, some defensive linemen, the linebackers, and what you're looking at as a director of recruiting in players, what you really need to see out of these recruits. So great episode, had a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy it. So let's start the show.
By the game. Snap, the kick is in the air, and the kick this time is no, sir-ree. No, sir-ree. Final score, Tennessee 20, Florida 17. Pandemonium reigns.
Loads up, fires long for the end zone. The pass is going to be caught. Tennessee wins! Caught by Tennessee to one Jennings. Jennings makes the catch in the end zone on the Hail Mary.
Down at the 35, to the 40, to the 45, to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. What did he do? All he did was score. Joey Pence, touchdown on play number 1.
All right, so before we jump into the show, got to shout out our main sponsor at Bet Online. They've been supporting us from the beginning, so they're a great company, great place to make all of your bets. You know, you got the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, you got golf going on right now, so a ton of things to bet on, and Bet Online is the place to do it. They're going to have all the news, all the stats, all the best odds. So head on over to betonline.ag or download their mobile app, and you will receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. All right, welcome on, everybody. We have an excellent guest today. He is a friend of mine and Reed's from high school, nice high school buddy, but he also has a reputation that backs up. He is director of recruiting at Western Kentucky, spent some time at Notre Dame and Indiana before that, has a little bit of connections everywhere, and has access to film that we don't have. So decided to bring him on, talk about these new transfer portal guys and get into it. So Taylor, how are we doing today, bud?
Great, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. Welcome. Super excited to talk about all these guys and be able to get your point of view on it.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing great too, Kyler. Hey, good morning. Good to see you. Thanks for asking how I am. Hey, first off, this is huge. This is huge to get Taylor, really, because it kind of started how with you would do the podcast and I would call you to talk about stuff, and then Taylor and I stay in touch. And usually, like, we're talking, like, recruiting stuff, and I'm just asking about how, Western Kentucky's going, or when he was at Notre Dame or whatever. And it's always cool because I'd call you to get stories from when you were playing. I'd call to get stories from Taylor about all his recruiting nonsense that he has to deal with and put up with. And so we were like, we got to get him on because we know that Tennessee fans, the number one thing they love is recruiting, and he knows a lot about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're a good friend too, so gotta take advantage.
Nothing better than talking some ball on a Saturday, anyway. So
That's right. All right, so we'll start with the big fella up front. I want to talk about DeJohn Terry coming from Kansas. I think he has more of an upside than the Caleb kid from USC, so I'm more interested in him.
Yep,
and his ability. Even though he is very fresh to football because, he, like, his senior year of high school was the first time he played, which is probably why he ended up at Kansas. But what kind of stuff did you see out of him? Do you see him, being in the rotation, maybe even a starter here at Tennessee?
Yeah, he's he's a puppy still. I think it's good. The big thing with him is he has years. And it's always good to bring in when you're bringing in these transfer guys. It's always good to have years on him. You get time to work with them. He's a big kid. He's powerful. He needs to get stronger. But he's very active. I don't know how much initially, like I said, he needs to get stronger, but I don't know how much of a pass rush he's going to bring from the interior spot, but he's got a good future on him. I don't know if he's going to come in, just because I'm not fully, up to speed with what the depth at Tennessee with your interior guys. But right now, I think he for sure should be a rotational guy just based on his tape. He's played quite a bit over there at Kansas, but he does, like I said, he does need to get stronger. He's already a big kid. He's very active. He plays with a good motor. I like the way he plays the game. I just think he needs a little more time. But I think he has a shot to be a good player at Tennessee. He just, to me, he's a little developmental. He shows some stiffness at times with his movements, which is typical for a big guy like that. But I love his motor and how active he is. He's just, I think that over time, he's going to be a guy that plays a ton of snaps there. I don't know that he's going to be a world beater for you guys. But I think he's going to play a lot of football there. And as he gets older and stronger, he's going to be able to give you some valuable snaps.
Hey, so one thing it was funny because he said a pup, that's a great way to put it. And I feel like that's some nice lingo in the coach world of a recruit. But I thought Taylor said he had ears, meaning he's coaching, but he said years. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. But dude, if Taylor thinks he can definitely go ahead and be a rotational guy, and the fact that he said he likes how active and good motor, your boy saw that too. Sign me up, Western Kentucky.
Yeah, he's a good player, man. I just like the way he plays the game. It's so important. There's so many guys out there, especially at a level like Tennessee, that there's so many talented football players, but it's harder than you think to find guys that just love the game and just work their ass off on every snap. And from what you can tell, he's not going to be able to do that every single play because he's a big guy and they get a little tired out there. But he plays really hard, man. He plays with good energy. That's so important in this game, obviously, as you guys know. And you love to see that on tape. You love to see guys that play with a passion. He's got it. So he's got some more growing up to do as a player. But I think he's going to be a guy for you down the road, and I would think he'll give you guys some snaps and be in the rotation this year for sure.
Yeah. Well, he needs to step up his cardio because I played freaking 6'4", 320, and I played 110 snaps for South Carolina one year.
Big boy, you do it.
Come on. I completely agree with the effort thing. It's so hard to coach effort. A lot of guys just don't care. And I think he does, even though he is a pup, like you said, because I said it 2 podcasts or maybe ago. One of his coaches, his freshman year, his D-line coach, said that he's probably the guy that makes me want to coach him the hardest. He cares. He comes over and asks questions all the time. They told a story about how the play wasn't even over yet, but he ran over to the coach and was like, "What did I do wrong?" He's just eager to learn.
Huge.
So
huge. You love to have those guys because there's not a ton of them on a team. You got to have. I mean, if you have 30 guys that are like that, that's phenomenal. That are just crushing it off the field, and I want to do this. I want to learn this all the time. Obviously with how the schedule is for football players with classes and practice and workouts and everything, there's times where you just want to go home, but it's huge to have those guys that are dead tired, but they're still up there and they're like, hey, let's work on this. Let's get better.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we'll stay on the defensive side of the ball. We'll bump back to the linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a huge spot for Tennessee. Me and Reed were able to go to practice. We're able to see those guys, and losing the guys that we did in the transfer portal, this is a position that is very small, literally and figuratively, just
Mm-hmm.
small guys and not a lot of depth. And to bring in these two linebackers, Juwan Mitchell and William Mohan, is going to be a huge thing for us.
Yep.
Now, Mohan didn't get to play a lot with Michigan last year, so there's not a lot of film on him. But what do you see out of both of these guys? What do these guys bring to the table? Do you see them playing right away? You see them starting right away? Because the way I look at it, I think Juwan is a bona fide day one starter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll start with Mohan. Like you said, there's very small sample size from him at Michigan. I went back and watched some of his high school stuff too. He is undersized. He's going to be probably another one of those guys that's smaller for you. I thought he's a downhill guy, does a pretty good job in pursuit. And I'm not super familiar with what you guys are running on defense here. I thought he's a little stiff, which would be concerning in space and in coverage. But with him, there's just not enough from him at Michigan to suggest that he's going to play for you guys this year. I don't know that, I'm saying at least as a starter, I'd be shocked if that kid came in and started for you guys. He's probably a developmental guy. They probably see some traits in him that they can work with down the line. But him not having played hardly at all at Michigan, and again, he's still young. So, he has some good traits. I would be a little concerned about him being a little stiff. We'll see how he develops, but for him, I don't know that he's going to help you guys this year. If he does, It's probably going to be limited. But he could be a guy that they see something in. Like I said, that he could be a developmental guy down the road and turn into a good player. I mean, he went to Michigan for a reason. There's some traits there for sure. So
I mean, when you're looking at recruits, he's coming out, like, you see his size. Are you kind of like, do I even watch this film? Like, like, if he doesn't fit the parameters of what we need or what our coach likes, because sometimes coaches like a bigger linebacker, sometimes they like a smaller, quicker one. Do you just like pass over, or are you just like, well, he does have an offer from a higher school or this other school, so let's check him out?
Well, yeah, you certainly you don't pass over a kid just because they have offers from certain schools. We don't operate that way. I mean, even if a kid has an offer from Tennessee, if we don't like him or if we don't think he fits schematically, then we don't, we don't just assume the kid's a good player because he's got an offer from Tennessee. I think with him, he's undersized, but to me, it all depends on what you're running and how he fits in your defense. The smaller guys typically can move around a lot better than these big guys. A little more fluid. They're great in pass coverage. They can fly around, maybe not as physical or downhill, but the schools like Tennessee, there's no problem with taking a 6-foot linebacker that's 210 pounds. I know you can get swallowed up, obviously, in this league with the linemen, but those guys, it's kind of trending that way now because everything's so pass heavy. You need to have guys that can move around and play in space. So me personally, I don't mind taking the smaller linebackers as long as they're good in that area. Like I said, if you're trying to run downhill and go up against a 6'6", 315-pound offensive lineman, you're going to have some issues. But I don't have a problem with that. This kid, he is undersized, but he could be a guy that they've seen something on tape and they're like, hey, he can fit in with us and we can work with this. Like, he's going to need a little bit of time, but we can work with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So on to Mitchell. Unless Reed, you got something to say about Mohan?
I'll fall back up. I want to hear Taylor right now, but I'll fall back up on him.
Yeah, so on to Mitchell, just watching him, just getting to see some highlights. He does seem like a very good player. Size fits, what we need, and he's very quick, and his ability to like duck and dip around blocks is pretty impressive from what I saw. But what'd you see?
Yeah, no, he's a great looking kid. Was productive last year at Texas. He's a great tackler, does a good job taking angles. Good angles. He's an instinctive player. I think that helps him a lot. He's not to me, I didn't think he jumped out. I agree with you, Kyler. He's got some quickness to him, some twitch to him. But he didn't seem like a fast kid. I think he does a good job, like I said, with his angles. He's smart, he's instinctive. And I think that helps him in that area. So I agree with you. I think this kid's going to come in and he's going to start for you, especially with what you've lost. I think there are times you can see on tape where he's maybe freelancing a little bit. He's out of position. So you might have to deal with that a little bit. But I think he's going to be a good player. I don't know that he's going to come in here and change Tennessee football. But he's going to be a really productive player for you guys. He should start. To me, he's like a bona fide Mike. He's exactly what you're looking for there. He's used to being in the Big 12, obviously, so he's used to being out there in pass coverage, and I'm sure he's going to do a great job there. But he's a great-looking kid. I got a chance to talk with a former coach at Texas there that had worked with him, and he kind of said the same thing. Just, he was very productive there. Good kid, leader, those type of deals. So I think you're getting a really good player there. He's going to start for you. I think he's going to be, again, super productive. But he, out of the two, he's, for sure the better player. I think he's going to help you guys next year.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear from that coach, especially that he said that to you, because it's like there's no reason for him to sell him to you, right? Like that, sure. Like you're the Western Kentucky recruiter. Like there's no reason for him to try and upsell his player to just be like, yeah, he's a good guy. The fact that he was saying that to you means it's true. Means like he's not BS and he's not trying to beat around like it is a true statement.
Yeah, well, one of the things and the reason, and I've just learned this from talking with Taylor and staying in touch, but it's for these guys, Taylor's met so many people and has so many connections that it's not even like a professional on that. Like it would be like me calling you, Kyler. It's you know what I mean? Like you were saying, like that coach has no reason to talk good to the director of recruiting at Western Kentucky. He's just like a bro. So it's just like, hey man, like, what do you think of this player? And they just give him a straight up honest opinion. So that, I think that's what's cool about the world that Taylor's in. Cause he's worked in it for basically since since high school. Even in college. But yeah, so anyway, sorry, I just got majorly distracted by that.
So, yeah, no, he's going to be a good player for you guys. It's going to be a different world for him coming from the Big 12 and playing in this league. But I think he's going to be super productive for you guys. He's probably going to make some mistakes. Everybody does, but he's probably going to make some bonehead mistakes at times. But great tackler, good player. And like you kind of touched on it a little bit, Kyler, but he's got a good finesse about him. He can find ways to get through holes, and he's creative. You got to like that. He's just a crafty football player. I like him a lot. So,
okay. So let's bump over to the offensive side of the ball, and we'll talk about Javonte Payton first. Wide receiver coming from Mississippi State. Seemed like he has a good amount of upside. He had that breakout game. I think it was versus LSU, the first game of the year. And then it seemed his numbers started to fall off. And I don't know if that's just like a divide between him and Leach, because obviously he's leaving for a reason. But he was injured at the last half, so maybe that had something to do with it. But what did you see out of him on film? And maybe his route running abilities or his abilities to mesh within an offense, because I think that's going to be important in this new Heupel offense. Is you might not get the ball every time, but if you're able to do your job, someone will be open.
Hold on real quick. You said route running abilities. I want to hear what Taylor says about his playmaking abilities, just overall.
Okay.
Yeah. So I personally, I love Javonte Payton. I think, there's a lot going on down there. And obviously they've had a ton of transfers and stuff like that. So, obviously he had the great game against LSU. The production kind of fell off throughout the season. I would not read a ton into that just because their season just kind of fell apart. And I don't know all the circumstances down there and stuff like that, but obviously they had a ton of issues. I think he is a very talented kid. He has, at times he struggles a little bit with some drops, but I think he does have some playmaking ability. You kind of get to see flashes of that in the LSU game. He's a solid route runner. He's got some twitch and quickness to him. Pretty good release. He can run well enough. I think he's for sure going to make an impact here. I really do. I also think it helps too, just coming from that offense to Heupel's. He's used to that quicker pace and moving fast. So that's not going to be an issue for him when he gets here. Just kind of fitting in with that kind of offense. Obviously it's different, but just the pace itself, he'll be used to that coming in here. But I do like him. I think he still needs a little more time. He is a little bit of an older guy, but I think he's going to play for you guys for sure this year. And I know you've got some other guys out there. Velus Jones is a great player too, and got some speed. He's going to be a guy that I think will plug in right away though here.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome to hear. And I do agree with that. Transition from Leach to Heupel, it's still just so up tempo. It's the exact, like he's used to that, used to playing in that system. And yeah, I mean, it's nice to see that we have more depth at linebacker. And when we talked about him before, Reed said, I don't necessarily want the flaky guy. Like he's kind of a head case where he like committed to us and then decommitted, committed to Mississippi, and then like just back and forth. But I told Reed, I just see him as like a third wide receiver. I don't necessarily see him as the number one guy. Like we still have Hyatt, we still have Jones Jr. Yep. He's like number 3, and if number 3 is a little flaky, I'm okay with it.
Sure. No, I agree with that. He's not going to come in here and be a first team SEC receiver, but I think he's a good player. I really do. I think he's it's hard from last year, just the mess that they had going on down there, like I said, but I think that definitely affected his production there. And obviously he had the injury stuff, but I agree with you. I think he could come in here and be a third receiver. But I do think he's going to have some production here. I think he's a pretty good player. He's talented. He just needs to be in the right fit and have a good quarterback throwing to him and all that stuff.
So great transition, Taylor. You mentioned the quarterback. Let's talk about the 2 quarterback transfers, Joe Milton, Hendon Hooker. What do you think of those guys? How would you compare them? Is one above the other when they come in? Now that Hendon Hooker's been here for an entire spring and is going to be here the entire summer. I mean, because I've said it, there's just a huge ladder to climb for Milton because there's so many quarterbacks that have already been there.
Yeah. And you guys have a very interesting situation at quarterback. You got a lot of talented guys in that room. Between Maurer and Bailey and Milton and Hooker, to me, Hooker and Milton are different players. Hendon is a really, really good athlete. He can throw the ball too. And, you're right. He's been here all spring. He's going to have a leg up on Joe for sure. That's a tough question for me to answer as far as who I think is better. Right now, I think Hendon's probably going to fit in a little bit better. With this offense, I think he's going to have a leg up as far as if you had to choose, at the end of fall camp, who's going to be your guy, I would think they're probably going to say Hendon. Now Joe could get here and have an unbelievable fall, and you never know. It's hard for me because I'm going to go back to Joe here. Just watching him, he is incredibly talented. To me, and I don't know a ton about your 2 current guys that have already been there. But I don't know that there's a guy that's more talented in that room. It's just watching him it's awesome and it's frustrating at the same time to watch his games because he can make throws that very few people can at this level. Very impressive. He is extremely talented, great arm talent. He can run a little bit. He's more of a pocket guy. And on the flip side of that, you watch him make decisions where he's got a clean pocket, he's got plenty of time, and it's just like mind-boggling decisions that he's making. Just terrible decisions. And, his completion percentage is a little concerning. I think he was 56, 57%. I think by the time he got pulled, he was 4 touchdowns and 4 picks or whatever. So there's a ton of concerns. And I talked to someone that coached at Michigan as well about him. We've talked about him before in the past, kind of when he first got there. And, I don't know that, we talked about him mentally. Is he a smart kid? Is he, are things easy for him? And that person told me, he is a smart kid. He's a confident kid. The wheels just kind of came off this season. And, part of that could be the offense at Michigan. You don't know that until he gets here at Tennessee, and stuff like this can change a person's career. He could come down here and this could be a great fit for him, and he could be the player that he has the capability of being. He is an extremely talented football player. If I was you guys as Tennessee fans, I would be fired up to have that kid in the room. He may end up coming here and being a complete bust, just from the mental side of the game, but just to have that talent in your room is huge. I'm going to be very curious to see how he develops in this offense, because there is a ton of really, really good potential there. And even the coach that I talked to at Michigan just said, when he first got there and, seeing him in practice and stuff, you're like, this kid's going to be a phenom. I mean, he's going to be unbelievable. And I think things just didn't work out for him at Michigan, and they may not here, but I would be very excited to have him in the room. He's so talented, and there's so much there to work with. But we'll see what happens.
He definitely seems the highest ceiling, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I would say so. You just have to find the right fit. He's got to come here and pick everything up and see things. It's just, like I said, watching him on film, you watch him make a couple terrible decisions, and it's just like you can't begin to comprehend what he's thinking in those moments.
Do you think it's more of like confidence issues than it is? Because like you said, being a smart player, it's like more just him having confidence issues and not going out like balls to the wall.
That just deteriorated throughout the season last year, which didn't do him any favors. Michigan obviously didn't have a good year either. So the wheels kind of fell off. But like I said, you go in somewhere else, you get that confidence back. That's all it takes. With a kid like him, as talented as he is, once you get that confidence, I mean, that kid could be an unbelievable player in this league. So I'd be fired up about him. Hendon's a really good player. Like I said, I think he's gonna come in and, he's got a lot of experience. He's probably gonna mesh right away in Heupel's offense. And, I don't know if he's gonna go out there and be the starter, but he's definitely gonna have a leg up on Joe. We'll see what happens through fall for you guys. But to be honest with you, if I were you guys, you've got a lot of great options in that room. So you should have no problem finding the guy to help you win some games this year.
Let me jump in here and ask real quick. If you just had to, I know you're probably gonna say you haven't seen them all or you didn't see the orange and white game, but if you just had to make a pick, who do you? We'll just say like it's a gamble guess. Who do you think will end up starting day one for UT?
If I had to say right now, I'd say probably Hendon.
Really? Okay.
That would be my guess. Guess.
Yeah. No, and I know. Listen, it's all a guess. We're not going to hold you to that. I mean, it's not like you're in the building. We know you don't get to watch them and stuff. So, okay. I'm
going to call you that first Thursday. I'm going to call you. You told me it was Hendon.
Damn you, Tyler!
That would be my guess. I mean, he's they're gonna put out there whoever has the whoever's the best fit for that offense is ready to go.
That's my next question. Taylor doesn't even know it, but he's given us two nice segues. So that's my next question. What do you know about Heupel? What do you feel about Heupel? And honestly, like, I don't even know if I've even asked you this just on personal phone calls, but like, what do you think about the Heupel hire? Like, just being in the coaching realm that you have been for, I guess, 10 years now or whatever. I don't even know how long.
Yeah, no, I don't know him. I don't really know anyone on that staff either. I think it's a good hire, man. They do a lot of creative things on offense. They're going to bring exciting football here for sure. You got to find the right pieces. Obviously, the biggest part of that is your quarterback. They need that to operate this offense at a high level. And, I think it's a good hire. I really do. He's very creative. And like I said, it's an exciting brand of football. So I think once things get rolling here, once recruiting picks up a little bit, you guys find the right pieces that fit what he's looking for. I think he's going to be successful here. I really do. Obviously it's a hard league, and you got a lot of really good football teams in the SEC. So it's not going to be easy to get up there where you guys want to be, but give him a couple years and see what happens. I think there's a really high ceiling with this staff, and this program obviously speaks for itself. So you got to get the right recruits in there. You got to work really hard there. And I think he's going to do a good job. I really do.
All right. 2 more questions. Actually, I thought I just had 2, but now I got 2 more. First off, and this is my opinion, but I want to see what you think or what you think. Don't you think Heupel's going to run the ball more than people expect? Like, they just think instead of like high flying, throwing it everywhere, don't you think
absolutely.
He's going to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I figured that. Now, my next question is, well, hell, I just forgot what it was. I'll remember. I want to ask you about
expert journalism.
What'd you say?
I said expert journalism out of reading.
Well, I wanted to ask him about the run game because I just think it's a big misconception that everyone thinks we're going to be throwing it all over the yard and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember my other question. I remembered it. So it's not necessarily about UT, but just recruiting in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and this is like maybe almost impossible to answer, but like, why do you think there are misses in certain instances, and what makes the biggest difference between a 5 and a 4 and a 4 and a 3 type deal? Is it really what we think it is, besides, actually size and speed and athleticism, or because a 5-star literally is the entire package? It's not like, hey, he would be a 5-star, but he's a 4-star because he doesn't have it all mentally yet, or he doesn't have it all athletically yet. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just curious about that.
Well, I can't answer that perfectly because I don't know exactly what all goes into evaluations for like 247 and rivals and stuff like that. So I don't know what their thinking is behind their rankings. It could very well be very different from what we do. I think when it comes to that kind of stuff, we don't look at that a whole lot. But for you guys, I know the fans get really into the 5-star, the 4-star thing. I think that, a lot of things go into that. There's the mental side it's hard when they're in high school to figure that kind of stuff out. So, those are kind of things that you find out when they get there. I mean, you can see stuff on tape, obviously, but, when you look at like 5-star kids, there's plenty of kids out there that we talked about this earlier, Kyler, just, they could have all the talent in the world. And you're like, holy cow, this kid's going to come in here. He's going to be, the best quarterback that ever played at Tennessee or whatever he is. But there's kids that just don't have the work ethic, and you can't see that always. The first week that a kid's on campus, he's a completely different kid than 2 months later when he's not getting any reps and he just kind of folds and he's like, I'm not doing this anymore. So it's really hard to figure out how tough kids are. It's really hard to figure out mentally how smart they are. And I think that's a huge part of why people miss is. You
said how mentally smart and mentally tough?
Yeah, just toughness, work ethic, those type of things. It's really hard. It's really hard to get those when you're recruiting a kid. You have to do a lot of research and rely on high school coaches or their coaches from the past or whatever, if they're transfers. You have to do a lot of homework. It's really hard to get those things, though. You can see all the all the athletic traits and all that stuff, you know, and some people miss on that as well, obviously, but you think you're getting a better football player talent wise than you are. But I think the biggest thing is just finding kids that love football, they're tough, and just mentally how smart they are with the game of football. I think that's a huge component on why people miss all the time. I mean, you're lucky to get, for us, I'm like, if we can hit on 50-60% of our kids, that's a good class for us. Because you're hit on 90% of your kids. It just doesn't happen.
All right. I swear, I promise this is my last one. I
No,
promise. All right. So you've been at Notre Dame, which is one of the most biggest blue bloods in the world, if not, top tier historically, with, Bama and Notre Dame. I mean, Bama, Ohio State, yada, yada, yada. Then you've been at Indiana, which Indiana is, maybe they weren't great, but they are getting much, much better. And they're still a Power 5. And now you're at Western Kentucky, which is Group of 5 is what it's considered.
Yep.
So you've seen throughout your time some of the different levels off and on, and you've bounced from lower to higher to middle to all around. That's just how coaching goes. But how was recruiting maybe any different from those? Besides the fact that we get it, Notre Dame's going to have a much easier time getting someone than Indiana or Western Kentucky, but you said that you guys don't look at stars or those rankings. So is it really just a philosophy on what the coach wants, and then you kind of try to get those type of people, or how's it different?
Yeah, I mean, for us, like schematically, that's a huge thing. You want to have a guy that fits your defense. There could be a 5-star, whatever, that is just a gigantic linebacker. He's stiff. We need more guys that can move, like we talked about earlier. So a lot of it is fit. You have to find the right fit in your defense or your offense or whatever it may be. That's a huge thing. And I can't really speak on the rest of it. Notre Dame was so different, even compared to Tennessee, because you have the academic component. It's so hard to get kids into school there. There's different factors everywhere, and a lot of it too, honestly, comes down to what the position coach likes. I've been at places before where when we wanted a receiver, the coach said, I don't want anybody under 6 foot. I like big kids, whatever it may be. And like I said, with linebackers, it's same difference. I don't want any big kids that are stiff and slow. I don't care how powerful they are, how well they tackle, how hard they hit. I need guys that can move in space. So the position coach plays the big.
I never knew that. I never knew. So position coaches have a big say in it type deal. And I bet, and from my time being around just football in the collegiate level, very short time, and in the recruiting, but and I'm guessing it happens, but some of these coaches are like fans and they're like, my gosh, like this guy is going to be incredible. He's a stud. He looks the part. Like they're humans. Like I know for a fact, like I think a good example would be like Butch Jones and I just lost his name again. I'm being very forgetful this morning. Who was the big defensive end that was going to go to Bama? He was a JUCO kid that we got, and he was
JUCO.
What? They had ice cream with him on top of the mountain.
Kongbo?
Kongbo. Was it that?
Oh,
maybe.
Yeah.
He was a big JUCO transfer guy.
Yeah. So I felt like the coaches were just all about him. We thought he was going to come in and be,
Derek Barnett.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was right after Derek.
Yeah. And then it's just like, so I feel like coaches do get a little fired up and like excited like fans do. And then they get blindsided by like, this guy's not what we thought.
Yeah. And it absolutely does happen. Because even when we go, like we have camps here in June and stuff, they'll go down and see some recruits and, they'll just be freak shows at these camps, like just unbelievable athleticism. They look great. You get to meet them, whatever. They're good kids or whatever. And the coaches will fall in love with them. You'll see them at these camps and stuff. And then you watch their senior tape and you're like, God, he's a terrible football player. Like he may have been great in camp, but he's a terrible football player. So you definitely run into that for sure, where coaches get enamored with kids. And, that definitely happens for sure. But
I was about to ask, did you think, like, what's the most beneficial thing to watch or to see out of a kid? Like his highlight film, going to a game of his, like having him at your camp, going to see him at like an opening camp? Like, what would be the most beneficial, or something where it's like, okay, now I can see the true player that this kid is?
For me personally, it's game tape for sure. Just watching all the snaps, because you kind of get a feel for, their highlights. You get to see what kind of player they are talent wise, but you get to see a little more in game tape. Just consistency in every snap, where they are, how good they are, how much effort they give, stuff like that. Seeing them in person too, like in camps and stuff, just because you get to get the body type them and stuff like that. That's very important. So I would say the two biggest for me are game tape, and then when they come to camps and stuff, getting the body type and see how they move around in person, all that kind of stuff. The other hard part is, like we talked about, is figuring out that personality and the mental side of the person. But it's hard. It's definitely hard. But those two are the biggest components for me. Just seeing them live in person and watching the game tape, you can get a ton from that. So.
Yeah. And I agree with like the mental toughness side of it, because if you don't have good technique in high school, okay, I get it. Like no one's really teaching you how to play in high school. I didn't know how to play offensive line in high school. I didn't know anything. Like,
Stop. Catholic was incredible, and you know
it. Not to say Catholic wasn't incredible, but that doesn't mean I knew exactly how to play offensive line. I was just big as shit. That was my advantage. Like I was just bigger than everyone else and stronger. But what I like to see, like out of film, is that effort we talked about. Is he running downfield? Is he nasty? Like, does he play mean? Does he have highlights on there where he's blocking? If anybody puts highlights on that he's blocking, I love that. Right. Offensive player, if it's a wide receiver and he's like, here's a blocking highlight, me dumping a corner. It's like that play wasn't meant for you. You weren't going to get the ball, yet you still put in full effort. Like, absolutely love that.
Or even if you see a running back, how many times do you see a running back put pass pro on their highlight? Never.
Yeah. Hey, good point. Pass pro, people don't even. I mean, listen.
That's a huge reason why running backs don't play, because they can't.
I know. Listen, no, that's what I'm about to say. I was still living in Nashville after the Tennessee Titans drafted Derrick Henry, and I honestly didn't know how his game was going to translate. Huge Tennessee Titans fan here, and I'm sitting there listening to all this sports talk, and every freaking day, why isn't Derrick Henry playing? These people would call in like, we drafted Derrick Henry, put him in there. He's da-da-da-da-da. And we still had DeMarco Murray at the time, which DeMarco Murray was still very, very productive. He did it in all three facets. He did it in running, pass pro, and in the pass game. And it was just like these Bama fans and all these college football fans that, in hindsight, they were right. He's an incredible player for the Titans. He's amazing, but he didn't get on the field because he couldn't pass protect. I'm not joking. Kyler and I had a conversation about this. We were watching a game in it was like a linebacker or someone like same size or smaller than Derrick Henry came in, and he was supposed to be protecting Marcus Mariota, who was trash, by the way. But he came in to block him, and it was like the worst block I've ever seen. It was like if I was coming in on the sack, like Derrick Henry wouldn't have blocked me. And it's like you can't have that when the guy is 6'3", 6'4", 240. Like what are you doing? And so, anyways, Titans tangent over. But pass pro is so important because you can't. Yeah. We all know, being around the game from whether it's like coaching or playing, if the coach does not trust you, you're not in there in any facets of the game.
Correct.
So, but anyways, all right. Let me say this. Huge thank you to Taylor because he's super busy. He works like 19 hours a day basically with this recruiting stuff, but he had a little off time. We appreciate him. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I definitely want to have Taylor back on to pick his brain, even if it's just entertaining for us. But Taylor, thanks a million. I'm guessing I'll talk with you soon. And then I do want to have you back on, hopefully during some summertime when you got a little downtime to ask some more stuff.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
All right, Keith. Talk soon, brother.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you guys for coming out, listening or watching on YouTube. Please rate and subscribe, like and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell on YouTube. Tell all your friends and family. Let them know what we got going on here. And if you have any questions or topics you want us to touch on, you can contact us. We have a phone number 865-322-9232 or our email that's believein.tennesseefootball@gmail.com. And as always, we're presented by betonline.ag. So go check that out if you're betting on any kind of sports that are going on. But like I said, appreciate you guys coming out. And as always, go Vols.